Great. So, if we go to Ethica Data dashboard, we can go see the adherence page associated with the survey, and we will see these different individuals as captured by their level of contribution. And this is going to be a big focus of my discussion, or a substantial focus of my discussion today, is going to be some of these measures. But this page is one that people within your study, while the study is in operation, will want to monitor on an ongoing basis. Move this over a little bit. I guess we can. So here, we see that, for example, this individual has submitted seven surveys, has canceled one of them. This individual 2, 1, etc. And these survey responses that are being summarized here are across a number of different surveys of relevance. What's more significant is if you expand this, you can also see something about the particulars of their data sources. So this individual, for example, had a missing GPS data for some periods and Bluetooth data. This one here also has periods where it was missing and then re-enabled. And sometimes you see long periods disabled, and you might want to contact that participant.
Do you mind just explain the green, red, and grey again?
Sure.
Green is submitted, the red is cancelled, and what's the
So
grey?
these are, okay, so there's three, so there's canceled, expired, and what's called done, but it's really submitted. So they actually completed, they submitted it. They submitted. There may be some questions they skipped in there and said, yes, I really want to skip them, but the survey was submitted. And the gray one is the expired, okay?
Right, so the ones they never got to.
They didn't get to them. They just allowed them to expire. And that's something which is particularly common when you have a survey that is set to expire within a shorter period of time. You may have it disappear. It's less common if they've summoned it by pressing a button that they designed or that they chose. It's going to be a lot less common. Cancellation involves actively canceling that survey in the middle of it. If you're in the middle of a survey in Ethica, there's a way up at the top that you can cancel that survey. So you cease answering it. And this is important for ethics reasons. So I'm doing the sunburn survey right now. And here I am in the midst of it. And up in the upper right, there's a quit, right? And if I press that, it will ask me, are you sure you want to cancel this? And it says, if you will not be able to resume. To continue later, simply leave the app by pressing the home button. In other words, if all they want to do is to get out so they can do something else, like call someone, they don't need to cancel the survey. They can, at any point, press home and go and use their other apps and come back to this and finish it. So Mohammed has this warning in there to make sure people know what they're doing. Quitting means discarding it, throwing it away. And if they persist and say yes, then that is lost. And that would show up as one of these red ones here. By contrast, if I start to fill this out and I said, do I want to take a picture of the sunburn? No. And then I say, did I try to protect myself? Yes, I wore long pants. Submit, that would show up as a green. What would also show up as a green would be if I said, do I want to take a picture? Yes. I'm going to take a photo. Red is the sunburn. And I say, okay, so this is my photo. And then it's asking me any comments. It wants my comment as audio or text. And I say, I don't want to give it. I don't want to give it time of day. I say next. And it says to me, you have not answered all questions. in this page. Are you sure you want to skip them? Make sure you scroll the page to see all questions. So it's warning me, hey, maybe I'm missing that. Are you sure you want to go on? And I'm going to say yes, I want to go on. And then it's going to ask the final questions here. And I can submit, and that would also be marked in green here. Even though I skipped that question, even though I deliberately, consciously said I don't want to answer that question, even though the questionnaire is not fully complete, that would be counted as green.
So in the data, they just have a missing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be missing. And before the day is out, we will see data of that sort, where we're going to be looking at the data collected, and we're going to be using some tools to display it. And you'll see cases where there's missing questions. And I would invite you to play around with this, just so you can get the stages of, get the experience the participants might go through in different iterations. But fundamentally, green is submitted survey, complete or incomplete questions. Red is actively canceled with that quit button, and they chose to cancel it. And gray is expired. It expired. It's sort of they're passively let it expire. Okay? We okay with that? Now, one thing to be aware of with respect to this that we'll come back to later is that those categories are valuable to know about. If you ask in the responses area here to a given questionnaire, so I'm going to ask, rather than all participants, I'll just ask for me, and I'll select a survey, sunburn questionnaire. There I go, and I do go here. I'm going to see, a whole bunch of my answers here. This also includes the one I just took, right? But what's notable is that this is including all things, times that it was canceled, there we go, and any time that it expired. I don't know that there's anything in here that was expired, right? I think every time I called it up. Similarly, when you do response map, what is shown here with the response map, if I were to go with that same participant, 231, and I were to do that same sunburn questionnaire, and I were to say go here, what's going to be shown here is the responses or the questionnaire uses, regardless of whether they're in fact completed or expired. So some of these might have been expired, some might have been canceled. Later today, we're going to see how to display on a map just those ones which were actually filled out here. Okay, so we'll zoom in on our local situation here. And here in Wentworth Park, there were a variety that were answered, but there's going to be some over here where we are now, which are probably going to be canceled, and I'd have to go find them. But these do include cases of ones that are not filled out. A better example would be to do the ecological momentary assessment. Here, often with EMAs, a lot of them get expired. They never get answered because people don't notice them in time. In this case, it was. If you did,
EMAs are the ones that just pop up.
they're the ones that just pop up, and they may be triggered by circumstance, or they may be triggered by time of day, or just at random times. But they're the ones that pop up without the participant being requesting it in any way. And these ones will often be subject to expiration. Looks like people were pretty good about answering them. Often when I look at EMAs, a large fraction of them are in fact expired. They just don't get answered at all, and they end up still being marked on the map because they're a survey was issued there. It didn't get answered. Okay, so it's good to be aware what some of the assumptions are. behind these. So adherence is one of those areas where where administrative oversight is needed. Monitoring adherence. Now, I guess that will lead to sort of a natural segue to our next talk here, where I'm going to be speaking about study management and operations. Okay, and I think I will just continue on here. Studies like this are often involved to get started, and then the worst of the pressure comes off, but you need someone to keep engaged from the administrative side to make sure that things are still staying on the rails. There's barriers to retention for people, or to put it another way, there's causes of attrition. One of them is people change phones. We talked about that yesterday. You want to be prepared for people to change phones and to have an understanding of what they need to do if they do change phones. Nonetheless, people may not remember to do that, and you're going to be wanting to monitor the incoming data. You'll notice if we go back to Ethica here, the Ethica site, and you were to look at this data, you will see there's last recorded date, you have join date, last recorded date, and last date. Last date is the last date that they're going to be in the study, according to the participation period. Remember, when you create the study, you say, I want this to go for 2 weeks or 2 years or whatever. The join date then implies the last day. Sometimes, however, it's open-ended, in which case there won't be a last day, I think, listed. Is that right, Mohammed? For an open-ended study where participation period is. We need to distinguish the study is open-ended versus for a particular participant it's open-ended. But you can have studies which are open-ended and the participation is open-ended, and for those last date will be left blank. Or
it's written open-ended.
It says open-ended, okay. But note this other one, last recorded date. That was the last date at which data was received from that participant. So there's a participant here, a person, ladies and gentlemen, of mystery, okay, which 1782 has never reported data. There's another person whose last reported data was on May 9th, some time ago. Many others are quite current here. And participant 1, for reasons known only to him, has dropped the study.
On that point of changing
Yeah.
phones,
Yes.
telling them to make sure they only use their new phone,
Yeah.
does that mean similarly they shouldn't be having the app on an iPad as well as a phone? They should only have it on one device.
Well,
What if they want to use their iPad sometimes and their phone other times?
So if it's survey, there is no restriction on how many devices they can use. They can use as many as they want. But then you have to consider that if you receive sensor data that is
Yeah.
important for you, then you get that data from both devices. Then you should have a way to distinguish which one is true. Like if it's survey responses, doesn't matter.
Right.
they can
It can be
answer
from
the
any
surveys
device.
from any device, which might be convenient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if it's GPS, if their tablet says they are home, their phone says they are in the office, which
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very good point. And for some participants, maybe participants who are older, who prefer larger font size associated with tablets or what have you, having 2 devices might have some attractions to answer surveys, and that'll be an expectation you'd want to manage probably. But the key point is being able to manage their phone transitions. And this last recorded data is your key to try to understand, what the barriers are, what's going on here to this, and it might lead you to contact them and ask them, help us understand what's going on. As Mohammed noted, that can be a quite intricate sort of plan how to contact them. Another concern that comes up is people may uninstall the app. It's a free world, people can uninstall the app. And distinguishing that from a change of phone could in some cases be challenging if the old phone is just turned off and we never see it again. I don't think Ethica is aware when it's uninstalled, is it? No. So if someone goes and uninstalls Ethica, perish the thought, we won't receive a notification. We won't be able to issue them that final questionnaire, exit question. It kills it, and that's it. Is that right, Mohammed? Yeah. There's also times where, networks that are required by participants, the availability of their access, particularly low SES participants, they may not anymore have access to a data plan. Because of personal circumstance, they lose their data plan. Maybe they're in a domestic violence situation and they're out of that house, and their husband cancels the data plan or what have you. They may lose the ability to sort of easily get the data transmitted back. That can happen. Finally, it may be that, and this is no different from a normal study, that their contact information has changed, so you're not able to reach them quite as easily. What's needed for study staff? If we thought about someone to oversee a study, what's really needed here? I wrote this a year ago, and I actually would put, I would actually tone this down now. Mohammed, I'm interested in your comments on this, but with the DFCI study, we've had some very, very good study oversight by people who initially didn't have great familiarity with smartphone platforms and it's sort of ease of using smartphones, but acquired it in the course of the study, it seems to me. I'm thinking, well, the couple of people I'm thinking of. It seemed that they did an okay job in the end. After a few months, they were very comfortable going through the consent, passing on troubleshooting requests, trying to talk with people and find out what barriers there are, and then interacting with the website. So these are people with no, computational background. Some of them don't have university degrees. Some do in the health sciences, and they seem actually fully comfortable with this. I think it's ideal if you could have someone on call that you could talk to before you have to pick up the phone and call Mohammed. But the point is that you can readily oversee this without formal training. Strong interpersonal skills are certainly desirable for managing it. And I think mixed teams of individuals from different backgrounds, it's desirable to have someone on call who's an IT person who maybe knows something about a technical issue you can't figure out or what have you. So high-level considerations that might affect retention, privacy, familiarity with phones. If you're dealing with patients in a Parkinson's disease clinic, we have a study going like that, or another one with dementia. Individuals with early stage dementia may not have comfort with phones, and that may lead them to just leave it in place. We used to have bigger issues with battery exhaustion. Right now, the very system you're working with has a sort of quasi-experimental feature in it for collecting more data from accelerometer. My observation is it's taking more battery life than it used to, and there's no question that if you start taking people's battery down to a level that materially lowers it, they'll want to uninstall your app. Particularly for phones with lower batteries, like often lower SES individuals might have phones where the battery is old, or it's a model of phone with a less strong battery, And if you start cutting their day short because their battery runs out, that's an issue. The more data you collect on your study, the more it will tax the battery. So this is one of the reasons you want to do little technical pilots. For a variety of phones, how does the battery last under this situation? If you require a whole bunch of the measures of physical activity, linear acceleration and gyroscope and regular accelerometer and gravity and orientation, these are going to start to actually take quite a bit of battery collectively. We mentioned overage charges. If people have a feeling that they might get charged for the extra data, they might well opt out. And sometimes you get phone failures. And then I mentioned burn-in effects in the first week, Hawthorne effects. There's an interesting question about what's the best way to measure involvement by people. And I don't have grand insights here, but you'll notice that Ethica does have, as part of the standard interface, in this adherence tab, it has this measure associated with, and I'm going to have to be careful here. Mohammed, this in operation, is that essentially that measure of the fraction of data received that could have been received from them? So this is one measure of kind of adherence or involvement. These blue buttons. I'll close these guys so you don't have to be confused by those blue bars. I'm talking about these ones that are shown for every participant. So this gives some measure of, for this participant, of all the data that could have been received from that participant. If they had kept their phone on all the time, the GPS was on all the time, the Bluetooth was in all the time, if they had kept all those things in tip-top shape, never shut it down, they would receive 100% of their data. Plus or minus, I think, a percent or so. Is that right, Mohammed? There's a little bit of wiggle room in there. Yeah, I mean, should they, in principle, if they kept their phone on constantly, Bluetooth on, GPS on?
Bluetooth and GPS on. This is the amount of time that the app was running,
Okay.
operating.
Operating. Okay.
Yeah, so the GPS might have been disabled.
Oh, okay. So it's
but,
just
but we get the record that the GPS was disabled and so on. But
Okay.
this is the amount of time that the app was operational.
got it.
But for that, you have to expand that plus side, and then you see
Right.
that.
Then you'll see the sensor-specific data here. And so what you're saying is the sensor-specific, the things that take into account, like GPS being up, etc.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is a good example. You see that, for
Yeah.
example, can you move it to your number? Yeah, for example, here is about 95%. About 95% the app was running, but out of that 95%, almost always the GPS was also running, except one block in the middle that they turned off the GPS, or they didn't have, they were indoors or something, that they didn't have any GPS data. Versus for Bluetooth, yeah, still like it's less than that. Maybe around 70% of that we had Bluetooth data.
Right.
So
And-
when you have multiple devices, you see that's where you see
see
the multiple
per-
devices under that individual, is that right?
You see you see one device per individual.
Sorry.
So you see one device per, you see one row per device.
1%. So if you're looking at it, I guess it would be the complement of,
Yes.
in terms of in operation, you see it might be where it's blue in one part, it would be white on the other device. and so on. So
Ideally it should be
you add
like
them-
that.
Ideally, you can add across those devices.
Right.
Yeah. So ideally it should be like that. In case it's not like that, if that at some point they had the app running on both devices, then you see that. So for example, if I start using an Android at first, and for the first 3 days I'm using an Android phone, it shows blue for the first 3 days. And after the 4th day, I install it on my iPhone as well, and run it for 3 more days. On Android, I have 6 full days covered blue. On iPhone, I have the first 3 days white because there was nothing from there, and the second 3 days as well.
So how does it know that you're the same person when you install it on your iPhone?
You log in with your credentials.
So you're saying, okay, but so when you're asked to register for a study, you just ask them to register for a study ID.
So when they
so
first
often
in-
you don't have to put your credentials in, do you? some, okay, right,
W-
okay.
w-
Yeah, you got it, as long as you got a
Yeah.
credentials going in there,
Yeah.
that can connect
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah.
you can connect everything together. So you don't have to re-register for any study. In your new phone, you log in with your credentials, and it just downloads everything for that study in your new phone, and adds a record here and shows the charts shows
Yep.
the bar for the new one.
So,
And
it-
one thing also to can you open that this
this?
yeah, this one?
Yeah.
Or maybe the one above
The
it.
one
just
above it?
more
Yep.
data there.
Yep.
If you start moving your cursor on that on this bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see a date is written. This is automatically adjusted based on the length of the study. It's either hourly, daily, or weekly, depending on how long the person has been in the study. I think this is right now hourly. If you move it, you see whether hours change. Yeah, it's hourly. So this basically shows like for every line in that chart is 1 hour. Versus if, for example, the participation period is say 10 days, then every line would be 1 day. If it's like 100 days, then it
Yeah.
starts using week. Like every line would be 1 week of data.
Mm. Mm.
So just to make sure that everything fits in this little space.
Good. Okay. So this in short, with respect to this overall bar you see for everyone, that's what fraction of the time the app of the time the app could have been running. What fraction of the time was it actually running? Given how long they've been in here, what fraction of the time was it actually running? Right.
Yes.
And to be clear, if someone here switched phones, so they had one phone originally, and then they switched to the other, and they uninstalled it on the original phone, and just continued on the new phone. Mohammed, you'd continue to see that old phone here,
Yes.
and it would have basically probably representation up to that point, and then the new phone would take over from there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll try to find an image of that, and we can show. it.
Okay, great.
Is it important that they uninstall it on their old phone?
Well, it's not important that they uninstall it, as the example that you mentioned. If they want to have it on their both devices, so they can answer in both devices, they can keep it. Doesn't matter. But it's just important to consider that if there are two sources of data coming in for the same person, potentially it can be confusing for the analysis because you don't know which one is true.
Right. So it's not a problem. Technically, it's a problem. It's not a problem for the technical operation, for the plumbing. It's a problem for the analysis. Yeah. And we'll be spending a lot of today on analysis, so we'll talk about that. Okay. So this tab, this sort of display is an important one, and I know my colleagues spend a lot of time checking in on this. And it's advised to do that on a regular basis. So this relates to this first sort of criteria, the fraction of all time that the app was on. Another measure is this fraction of questionnaires answered versus canceled versus expired, and that's there's some suggestion with this. There used to be a way on the site that it would actually have a crosstab of listing. I think of I can't remember. It was like the fraction of different questionnaires that were answered.
Oh,
or
yeah.
something.
Well, we removed it because
Yeah.
we are still working on it.
Okay, so there's some features that might be rolled out that would give a higher level overview of this in a crosstab sort of way. Fraction of different questionnaires that have been answered, canceled, or expired. We will see in Tableau later today how you can summarize these things if you're interested in getting those sort of crosstabs built up. Let's see. Yeah, another way you might measure someone's contribution is how many of the proactively reported things, like saying, I got a sunburn, or taking a picture of a barrier to physical activity in their community, are they submitting? That's another type of involvement.
I sent you the multiple device picture.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much. So special delivery.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Okay. So this is multiple devices. Participant one is a longtime contributor to the success of the Ethica platform.
It has many pockets in his clothing.
That's right. And here you see for multiple. He also it would appear to have some familiarity with IT technology. His mastery extends not only to one platform but to multiple. And here, what you see is really quite interesting to me because these are almost mutually exclusive. Not quite. Like these may fit into those two there. And this was used, it seems, prior to that. So maybe this person started with this SM G900 W8 and then switched to this Moto G3 and then switched to a different Moto G3 and then somehow went up here and went here for a while and then switched and then back and switched and back. And then there was some sort of period where they had a Nexus 5 maybe to debug it for one of the studies. And here's their GPS, which is less contiguous, but
I guess one
yeah.
point we were just thinking here is that
Yeah.
what often happens is you give your old phone to somebody else.
Yeah.
So it would be really important to make sure that it's uninstalled
Yeah.
before you pass your old phone on to someone.
Right. Just like you wouldn't want to mount the accelerometer on the dog to run around.
Yeah.
You want to have your phone.
Because I'd give my old phone to my
Take-
daughter.
Yeah.
She
But
would
usually you
mine.
log out from all your emails and everything before you passing your device. to
Yes,
others.
you'd usually clear the whole device.
Yeah. Otherwise, there might be a sudden change in the frequency of screen state being accessed or something, right? Yeah. Good. So this gives a glimpse of what it's like from the perspective of multiple devices. And I think this, I would say, Mohammed might disagree, but I would say this participant seems to be the one he sent the picture of was a fairly exemplary participant in terms of, only keeping it on one device at once for the most part. Yeah. Okay, so we've gone and plotted these things out. This is for a box plot showing for different phones. This was actually with IEPI prior to Ethica's use, but here, for a particular participant, look at different days, what fraction of their data was received for that day. And what you could see is that, while there might be a median level, there's often, for a given participant, there's quite a degree of variability here. Some participants have somewhat higher contribution rates and some have lower. But even within a given participant, there may be some days where they're not contributing a lot and then some days where they are. This is with older technologies. Take this with a grain of salt, but the point is there is day-to-day variability that can be significant in terms of this. This was a study with a lot of low SES participants that reflects what I mentioned earlier, that most people here had almost no requests for snoozing their phone, but 2 individuals within this cohort snoozed their phone a great deal. And this was in the context of a recruitment process also, where some family members expressed concerns that the phone would provide a window into their family dynamics, into activities of other family members that might be adverse in terms of implications. So the point is here, these 2 individuals actually snoozed the phone quite a lot, suggesting a desire for privacy, whereas most individuals almost not at all. And we could get statistics on that, on sort of snoozing levels. And if there were interest, we could probably do that this afternoon to look at what levels of snoozing are common. We've also looked at things like battery levels. What are the ranges of battery that people experience? How often is it going low? For some studies, we've had it's quite common. We'll create scatter plots for different modes of contribution. So this is one study that we ran with meals that people were reporting and count of blood glucose levels that they were reporting with a spot blood glucometer. And what you'll find here is some people were really, really good at reporting blood glucose, and they didn't really contribute many meals. And some people reported more meals, but very little in the way of blood glucose. And this is really old stuff, but from newer studies, we have more indications. And actually, this is I should really be showing more updated ones. But the point here is that we have some studies in which those using the phone are reliably answering on-device questionnaires in terms of keeping the questionnaires answered. And my observation has been from many studies that we don't, so one of my hypotheses was when starting this work, that maybe people's involvement in the study would drop off over time. When they start being involved, maybe they're eager to contribute, and then after a certain amount of time, it just drops off. And this was a study which involved individuals being involved for something on the order of 3 weeks mostly, but some individuals went, I think, for twice that. And what you see is this is when they answered a particular survey, is the vertical bar here. And what you see is there's not a lot of obvious patterns of kind of, initial involvement and then sharp drop off. People seem to go through maybe episodic bursts where they will contribute for a while and then maybe their life gets busy for a week. Maybe there's a family visitor, or it's vacation with the kids and they're constantly tending over the kids. But then there'll be periods where they contribute again. And some individuals seem to get in the groove for a while and then fall out and then come back. So I wouldn't say I've seen much evidence at all of sort of drop off over time that's pronounced.
So would you,
Yeah.
to include them then in your sample,
Yeah.
would you say they had to complete a percentage of those surveys to be
Yeah.
included, or?
That might be a criteria, yeah. In order to be a meaningful sort of participant, they need to record at least a certain number to be viewed, to have their data viewed as sort of meaningful data. And in some of the studies we've run, an individual, who early on, like for the first week or two, is not living up to that, they'll be approached about, departing the study if they're not, and know that that it's part of the compact with the study with them that they will be submitting these things. Yeah.
So Nate, 1 to 8 there, or those numbers, they're different studies?
These are different participants.
Participants in one study?
Participants for one study. I'm sorry, I should have explained this. And this is days since the study started.
Let me
Yeah.
observe that you're speculating about the potential reasons for non-participation. Let me speculate.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes studies ask a whole lot of rubbish questions.
Yeah.
So have you been able to compare studies to say that they set up a good set of questionnaires that people found worth contributing to, and compare studies and the interventions? Is that have you done?
Oh, it's readily possible.
Obviously, you observed there are successful studies and unsuccessful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's if I can comment on
Yeah,
that.
that's
I
interesting.
believe what you say. It's very, very true. And I've experienced it firsthand. We did a study that, and people see that as a problem of the app, and they contact me. That's why I know. For example, they say, "Well, I already answered this thing, so why it asks me again?" And turns out the questionnaire design is in a way that is. So we had a study that the way that it was designed was that they had 20 modules of different question sets, and they wanted to ask those questions in the format of quantitative and qualitative responses. So they had the first 20 modules asked once a day for 20 days, and all the day were phrased in a way so the responses would be quantitative. and then the same 20 modules repeated, but their response were expected to be qualitative. Like, for example, instead of having a multiple choice question, it was a free-form audio response. And I got many feedbacks that the app has glitched because it asked me the same questions as before. And people stop answering. Yeah, people say, well, I already answered that. They answer the first one, the second one, then they give up. So that's one example. There are more examples about that as well. So to emphasize what you mentioned, it's actually very, very important to get the flow right. I got a lot of feedback on how the user interface and technology that we are talking about has to be improved. But like, for example, to make it a bit simpler, to test the survey flow and to make sure that it looks good and so on. But I believe, putting that aside, it's very, very important before rolling out the study to participants, test everything internally, pass it with your team to make sure that they think the flow and the question wording and the skip patterns, especially skip patterns, are properly adjusted, are properly defined, and so on. That directly impacts the data quality.
Yeah. So it's a great question. What I'm going to be doing today is to show you how you can, if you were using this study, although it's not something that's built into the Ethica site, you could very easily create things like this to look at, what are the patterns for your study in terms of contribution by different participants. I would also note that, and really I might just try to call up something here which shows this. But there's some studies which we've run which have demonstrated very, very consistent high levels of involvement over very long periods, over a period of many months, for example. And those sort of studies were very carefully planned in terms of the questionnaires. They set the expectation on the part of the participants, and they also worked to make sure the burden was not overly large in terms of those, the questionnaires that were asked. What's also notable is that there were again cases where individuals were very good at contributing along certain metrics, but not along others. And so the notion of what's a good participant or a compliant participant is less clear than you might think. Someone might be really good at submitting the proactive things, but not very good at answering EMAs, and vice versa. Why that is, what psychologically factors into that, I'm not fully sure. It's a pattern that we've observed, that there's not one size fits all in terms of what a good participant is, compliant participant or what have you. Yeah.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
I think when you're asking participants to fill out, EMAs, short questionnaires, repeatedly, it might help to frame that at the start of the study to say, well, twice a week we're going to ask you how happy you're feeling today, and we do that because we want to see how things change over time, how that's affected by other things, just so they know, that's why I get the same question over and over again.
Setting expectations, and it goes to my point yesterday that some studies do very well by basically saying, look, we're going to ask you for 1 week's time to really help us out by answering things intensively, but after that you'll be asked a lot less. And we do that for this reason. Again, setting expectations, helping them understand why we're doing this, and that it's based on a consideration of real benefit, but that we're respectful of their time. Yeah, that's good. Because in the end of the day, these are people's phones. They're people's own phones, and I'm not going to say it's a bit like getting a call, an unsolicited phone call, But it takes a degree of trust, and participants want to hear that respect, I think, that, you know, their time is being respected. Okay, so those are some comments on study management and operation. I have a lot more things that could be shown there from different studies if there were an interest. But I think I'm going to. So Jeff, is the food here yet or not?
It looks like it. I'll just check that.
Okay.
I think they're okay.
Okay. That would be great. I hear a cart rattling.
Yeah, I think that's the second one.
Okay. Because we do. What's that?
They're setting up.
They're setting up now. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be spending, as I noted, a lot of today working with some analysis tools. And there's two tools that I'm going to be showing that complement Ethica very well. One of them is the tool focused on social network analysis for displaying networks from the data. Contact networks that might be received via Bluetooth or the Bluetooth beacons that Mohammed spoke about, for example. And we're going to use this tool, which is called Gephi, to display some of the data. Now, I'm going to do it on my screen. Some of you may be interested in using Gephi yourself, G-E-P-H-I. That's one tool. The second tool, of which we'll be partaking, is the tool called Tableau. T-A-B-L-E-A-U. And Tableau is an extremely popular tool for exploratory analytics that's used a lot in the area known as business intelligence. That's used a lot for sort of in businesses sorting through massive volumes of data on things like sales that they've made, etc. Turns out it's an extremely effective tool for managing, for doing exploratory analysis on the sort of large-scale data that comes out of Ethica. And it's very accessible. And I'm going to give a bit of an introduction to both tools and showing how we could use them for practical goals with Ethica data that are not yet supported directly by the Ethica site. Okay, so this might be for regular reporting, exploratory analysis, etc. That won't be all that we talk about the analysis front, but it will occupy us. And it's geared at giving you useful tools you could go away and apply with Ethica that would complement what you can do on the site, complement what you can do really easily with SAS or SPSS, and give you some visuals of use. The deal is that these software packages are unlikely to be on everyone's laptop here. But on the end of yonder rows here, yonder columns, in sectors 2 and 3, sit 2 TAs. And those TAs have been charged with assisting participants who are interested in installing Tableau and Gephi. So if you are interested in following along click by click these exercises, they can help work with you to get those programs onto your laptop as time allows here. Okay, we're going to be using them this afternoon, and I figured that this break this morning could be a good time to start. So if you could entrust your laptop into the hands of these two fine young men, hopefully they can help you get that on there. If you just want to watch, it will be recorded, and you know, I'm glad to share it with you. You can apply it in the comforts of your home office. But otherwise, let's see if we can get them going. Let me ask this other question. Is anyone using the built-in computers here still? Okay, the built-in ones? Okay, those already have Tableau installed, it turns out. Okay, so
You have to register it though.
It's not registered there?
No, they're not licensed. So once you load it up there, it asks for your license.
Okay.
So if you get a 2-week trial,
Free license
yeah,
online.
put your sign up for that.
So maybe it's easier to,
Yeah.
people can consider using these laptops. You all have credentials to access these computers. So if you don't want to install Tableau on your computer, you
You won't
can
have
use it.
Gephi though.
They don't. They won't have
Okay.
Gephi, and the other thing is we have to be cautious about using these computers too much because we can be charged for it. Because the room is being, yeah. Anyway, so we got the okay to use a few of them, but if we use too many,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of kind of fun. Should be okay. I wouldn't let that stop you in this stage. Haven't used them for a few days.
okay.
Yeah, you haven't used them.
Okay, so if you'd like to, you can enjoy Recourse. So if you go to Tableau site, tableau.com, and you were to go look at the Tableau products, there's one called Tableau Desktop. This is the one of the products we'll be using. And within this, you'll see that they have a prominent ad for try it for free. Okay?
Anyone who's with a university or an academic institution, you can get a free academic license as well.
Yep.
But it takes about 24 hours.
Exactly, yeah. So it'll take some time. Here you can download and get a free trial, and I think they will. You put in your email, and I think they send you a registration code. Can either of the two fine young men comment on that?
It has been a while, but I think that that's true.
Okay. Yes.
I believe they send you a link or something and then it downloads in your browser the trial application. When you sign up for the 2-week trial, you have to put in a bunch of personal information.
Yeah.
But that's done in the program.
That's done in the program itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so that probably would be these ones on these computers then. Yeah.
Yeah, or anyone who doesn't have a license tries to install it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So they stand ready to help with Gephi and with this, and you'll find them very visually compelling tools for analyzing, exploring Ethica data, and we'll go through a number of exercises. So let's get going on that.
How do you spell Gephi?
Gephi. We won't actually need them until after lunch, but we will. We'll get the process going right now. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much.
I
Yes.
understand Tableau has one version for students for specific courses. Do you have that through the university?
Yeah, so our students at our university can get that for particular registered courses. I think they require detailed information on the course and so on. And as was mentioned by Robin, as academics, those of us who do have an academic affiliation or position, we can actually enter that information and post it, and they actually will send a registration code that specifies something we can enter. The challenge is at this juncture is time. Yeah.
If you do the one that's already on there.
Okay.